Hello and welcome to Rising Match Day this Saturday the 2nd of October. I'm Owen Evans, joined here by Arizona Sports' Jake Anderson. We're here in California looking ahead to tonight's Rising game against Orange County. But first, let's take a look back to what happened on Wednesday night as Rising took on LA Galaxy 2. So Rising travelling to LA Galaxy 2 for their final meeting of the regular season, Phoenix winning all three up till then. A heavily rotated side that dominated parts of the early exchanges, but they couldn't score, and Tate Schmidt's red card at the end of the first half caused problems for the side. That his second red in two consecutive halves of football for him. Rising held on well and created chances of their own, but would fall behind in the 77th minute. Lalo Delgado unable to hold on to this deflected effort, and he's credited with the own goal. Things went from bad to worse, Preston Judd doubling the advantage as the clock ticked down. Finally, Jorge Hernandez putting the result well beyond reach in stoppage time. So definitely not one that Rising would be proud of. They fall to Galaxy 2 by 3-0. Here's the post-game reaction.
It's not about, well, if we have to play with 10 guys every freaking time, this is what's going to happen. It was ridiculous. First of all, it's our fault because we were not good on set pieces. Our corner kick transition was awful. We were too wide. The two guys that were in the back ran to wide areas, and the guy plays a through ball into two wide open players. I still think we had two defenders between the ball and the goal. I think the forward had an awful touch. He wasn't going to get to the ball anyways. And the referee ruined the game, as usual. See, I'm just getting so tired of it. 3 games in a row now, we've had poor decisions go against us. Look, if we didn't get a red card, did we look like the better team? I thought so. I thought we were fantastic in the first half, up until the red card, and it's not about changing players. The hard part is going to be that I haven't seen it on film, but I think for sure that the red card wasn't just. So I think that's going to be hard for them to get over, because we haven't really gotten it over it as a staff. So I have to get beyond that, and Orange County is a very, very good team, and there's a little chink in the armor tonight, so we have to move on and get ready for the next game.
So certainly not a great result for Rising on Wednesday night, but Jake, where do you think it went wrong?
Honestly, I think the whole match changed definitely with the red card with Tate Schmidt. From what we saw, we were there, we could have had a lead for Phoenix Rising in the first half if they put away some of those chances, and then obviously being down a man for 45 minutes is never easy, and eventually the Galaxy poked one in and went on from there.
Obviously, the red card playing a big role in that, but do you think it's fair to look at the rotation at all, the 8 changes that were made?
I think it definitely makes an effect when you take out so many guys. I think we said 8 from the Tacoma 2-1 win. So when you have that much change going, we had a different goalkeeper. Unfortunately, Lalo makes that mistake, and there the first goal goes in. So I think continuity, when you're taking guys in and out, you're missing a Darnell King, Solomon Asante, and a Kevin Lambert in a match. Obviously, it's going to make a big difference to the overall flow of the game.
Alright, so let's have a look at the league standings here, because of course that result did have an impact. Rising might have clinched their playoff spot. They're looking, though, for the top seed in the league. There were no games out in the Pacific Division. That's why we're not looking at them as we normally would at this point. Instead, looking at the race for the top seed. Jake, 3 teams in it at the moment. It's Rising, El Paso, and Tampa Bay. Do you think Rising have enough in it to actually secure the top seed?
They absolutely have what it takes. Obviously, this loss does not help, but as you alluded to, it's almost like the Pacific Division standings. We've been waiting for them to clinch it at this point. They've been one win away for a couple matches now, and they'll look to do it against OC. But like we were speaking earlier, El Paso and Phoenix Rising are the only teams in USL that are undefeated at home. So I think that speaks to just how important it is. And obviously we've seen where Phoenix has lost this year, and it hasn't been at home. So I think if they can do it, there's actually a chance that they'll get that trophy they've been searching for the last few years.
Of course, El Paso 6 points behind, but they've got 2 games in hand. Tampa Bay 1 point behind going into today, but they do have a game in hand. Who do you think is the bigger challenge here? The biggest challenger almost for that top spot?
To me, it's El Paso just because they don't allow goals. And if you don't allow goals, you always give yourself a chance to win. Phoenix kind of, not that they don't have a good defense, but they kind of seem to do it the other way around to where they'll outscore you kind of thing. I mean, we even saw the 4-3 game the last time they played at Galaxy 2. So El Paso, to me, I think, honestly, is the biggest challenger to Phoenix in their quest to win this whole thing in the playoffs.
But I suppose we know who is the biggest challenger here. Who do you actually fear most if Rising actually had to travel? Is it the Western Conference final in El Paso, or would it be an Ultimate Cup final out in Tampa Bay?
That's interesting because we've actually seen them do both, right? We've seen them go on the road for a conference final. That was OC 2018. They proved victorious. And then we've seen them lose a final when they're the away team as well. We never saw them play in Tampa. That's one who we will never know. We can speculate. So I think that one might be a little different because they've actually done that game in a regular season. Haven't played El Paso in Texas for a few years now, right? So that is a game that they haven't had any experience with. So maybe it is El Paso because just think the final, no matter where you're playing it, you can always get yourself up for a final.
Well, speaking of OC, as you just mentioned there, that's who Rising's playing tonight. They haven't actually won a game at Orange County in the regular season since becoming Phoenix Rising. What do you think is behind that poor run?
It seems like this whole trip has had that 2016 feel that the last time Galaxy had beaten Phoenix Rising, they weren't Phoenix Rising. They were still Arizona United. So it's kind of ironic there, but it's a tough place to play. It's a rivalry that goes back years now. We've seen OC has proven the ability to beat Phoenix in Phoenix, not this year, but in years prior. So I think it's just the fact that, let's say last year the field wasn't the easiest to play on, right? But it's just one of those things to where good teams, Phoenix hadn't beaten Sacramento on the road until this year. So it's just one of these, Northern California, not that we're Northern California, but OC is just one of those Cali teams that they haven't been able to beat, but I think they definitely can tonight.
Of course, they did get that one win, as you mentioned earlier, in the conference final at Orange County. But we've seen Orange County now twice this season already. What are your main takeaways from those games?
That goals will be scored for sure. Some players that we can talk about definitely would be like Sean Hugo Okoli, who is just a big monster of a forward, just a big guy that either Joe Farrell or James Musa were going to have to mark, or the two of them are going to have to figure it out. But in my opinion, he's stronger than both of them. So he will get the ball to his feet and be able to hold it up. And whether he can then get his teammates involved from there is, I think, the game.
So you would say that Okoli is the main guy to look out for tonight?
Okoli, I think, is a guy that can definitely get his team on the board by himself. He can create a chance by himself, but if he wants to play with his back to goal, get his teammates involved, he can do that as well.
And is there anyone else, I suppose, that you'd point out as particularly dangerous? A guy like Ronaldo Damas or Ira Markkanen?
I think Thomas Voltson would be the other one I'd point out just because he's been with the team for so long and we've known about him for a while. If Adam Chan was healthy, obviously he'd be a big guy we'd want to circle and talk about, but unfortunately his injury keeps him out of the lineup tonight. But Anna Voltson is a guy that we've seen who can prove, he's European, he's come over here and he's proven he's a goal scorer and can get in the attack. So he's back from injury and I'm sure we'll see him tonight.
Well, Anna Voltson, as you said, back from injury. He hasn't made too many appearances this season, but he has in the last 5 games off of the bench. Now, you mentioned Adam Jan, of course, a former Rising player with Orange County, although he is out injured. How important do you think the former Orange County players on Rising's team, in Aidan Quinn and in Andre Rolls, will be tonight?
I think they're 2 paramount players that Rick will 100% write in his starting 11. Unfortunately, with Lalo's, mistake on Wednesday, I think it kind of cements Andre as the number 1 keeper for games that are really important. We know what Rick's philosophy is against former teams, meaning his players playing against former teams, and what can we say about Aiden Quinn? Him and Kev Lambert have been the staples and the rocks. When we did a midseason MVP a few weeks ago, he was one of my midseason MVPs that I chose just because he's so consistent. Looking at stats, he's got 6 goals. I believe he's got 6 or 7 assists. He plays almost 90 minutes every match. So just a guy that without him, I think Phoenix would be in trouble.
And what do you expect Phoenix to come out doing today? Because, of course, when you look at midweek, there were those 8 changes. You had guys like Darnell, Solo, and Kev, who I'm sure some people at home are a bit concerned about where they were. They weren't in the 18. They did make the trip. We saw them in the stands. What do you expect Rising to come out with today?
I think it'll be a full lineup. I think after you lose a match, especially a match you've never lost as Phoenix Rising, you want to come back out, and they're not going to be okay with 4 points of 9 on this road trip or 3 points of 9. They're going to want 6. I'm sure they'll even be disappointed to only get 6. And they want to get the Pacific Division wrapped up. And they, like we said when we were talking about the overall home field advantage standings, that's something that they talk about every single year. The Supporters Shield regular season title winner, whatever you want to call it, they want to have the most points at the end of the year and be able to play every single game at Wild Horse Pass. So I think this is a match we talked to Rick after the game, and he was pretty upset, and that only, I'm sure, fuels the fire to want to put out a full starting 11 tonight.
And are you confident that Rising can get the result tonight?
I'm confident they can, coming off a loss. I wouldn't have predicted that they would have gotten fewer than 6 points, honestly, on this road trip. And they have obviously got the loss on Wednesday to Galaxy. So the motivation, what it means, it's a tough place to play. But earlier this year they ended a streak like that, so I think they can do it again.
Well, that's all we've got time for this morning. Jake, thank you for joining me. We'll both be out at Orange County tonight, so make sure to give us a follow on the social media accounts above. Tonight's game, a 7 p.m. kickoff. Enjoy the match. Goodbye.